Hey there. Today, I want to start with a story about when my best friend, my childhood best friend, told all of our friend circle basically that she thought I was a sociopath or psychopath. I don't really know what the difference is. Uh, we were post college, and we got together. We'd all gone to high school together. We'd gone to different colleges, and over one of the summers we were all in different places, but we got together at one of the girls' apartments, and just kind of hung out and caught up. And I think we were not. I guess we weren't post college. We were not quite 21, so we couldn't go out. And so we were this was back in the day when you still went to Blockbuster for movies, and we had gone, and we each picked out a movie that we wanted to like watch, like one of our favorites to share amongst all of us, because we'd been away for a little while from each of us. One of the girls picked, I don't know why I remember this. I have no idea what movie I picked. One of the girls picked Casual Sex, which I think had like Leah Thompson and, oh gosh, I can picture her. I don't know who I can picture, but I can't think what. I have no idea what the plot of that movie was. There's another girl. I don't remember what she picked either, but my best friend from growing up picked this movie, The Last Seduction. And while before we watched it, she was like, "Oh, I love this movie, Kristen. The main character reminds me of you." And so we watched this movie, and if you've never seen it, it's an old movie, so I'm going to spoil it. But Linda Fiorentino is the main character, and I think her husband is a drug dealer, but she somehow like swindles him or his buyer, or somehow gets all of the money from a deal, and he's taking the fall for it, and she flees. And he's trying to track her down. She goes to this small town. She ropes this like local yokel into like falling for her. She orchestrates this whole thing, and like, oh, like just callous, and just, yeah, I mean, it's a movie where I was watching it and I was like, and she doesn't really get a comeuppance at the end, and she gets away with it. It's just, so I watched this whole movie, which I thought was a good movie, but at the end of it I was like, dude, like, she reminds me of you, or wait, she reminds you of me. Like, that's disturbing on so many levels. And she's like, "Oh no, I mean, not like that. I mean, of course she's terrible." She's like, "No, but like how she was smart and driven, and she thought about all of these things." And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's better. But still, like, surely there are other, I mean, I don't know, there is kind of a dearth of smart women characters, so maybe there really weren't that many back in the early 90s. But at any rate, it was funny just to think about what we think about ourselves, or what we take from like a compliment, and also like what our friends think about us and what they can reflect back to us that we don't always see in ourselves, or that we would downplay in ourselves. And so one of the things that I learned, I mean, because we've never talked about this, that is that she just kind of admired that about me, that I was able to kind of look ahead and see all of these possible problems that were going to happen, and make a plan to deal with them, and it would fall into place, and I could see like those random connections, um and that I wasn't actually a sociopath. But it's so I think about that because one of my favorite techniques for figuring out what to do about like either positioning yourself, or just in general how to think about things that you do in a different way, is to enlist the help of your friends, because they provide an invaluable resource, because they love you and they see you for who you are and your strengths for what they are, and they don't downplay them. Like, they're like, it's so much easier if you think about it to hype up your friends. Like, if you were introducing your friend to someone else, it's so easy for you to be like, "Oh my God, she's amazing, and she does this and she does that," and you talk about all of those things, and she probably would have a hard time saying those about herself, just like you would have a hard time being like, "Oh yes, I do all of these things," because we're taught to like downplay that, or not brag about ourselves, or we just are not used to complimenting ourselves, because how many times would you listen to a friend hype you up and then be like, oh, well, I don't really do all of that. And we have a very hard time taking compliments and accepting what it is that we're good at. But friends help us do that. They're a great sounding board. They're great at, that finding the thing that they admire about you that you might think is not all that great. It might be something that you find negative about yourself, or you view in a negative light, but that other people really like and appreciate about you. So one of my favorite pieces of advice, and I do this, I've got wonderful friends that I can bounce things off of and ask the questions. It's a little awkward to be like, well, what do you think my strengths are? But when you let them know what you're doing and why, you're like, okay, I need to figure out how to frame this, but I'm struggling with this because it's hard for me to talk to about myself. It's very common in certain circles of business, especially for newer writers. It's common to have like one trade off services, like I'll write your web page, your about page, if you write mine, because it's just, I don't know, it's just easier if you can have that little bit of removal. And when you talk to someone as if they're your client, then it's just a different mindset, and then you're writing about them, and it's easier to write about someone else than yourself. So your friends are a great source if you're struggling at figuring out what it is that you might be good at doing that isn't something you're doing right now. Because the other thing that's great about your friends is, even if you've grown up together and you know everything about each other, their life experience is still different than yours. And they're going to have insights that you don't have. Or they're going to just think about things in a slightly different way. If you're neurodiverse, you probably think about things very differently than they do, which can be valuable. But also, if you're neurodiverse and you have a neurotypical friend you're bouncing things off of, they're going to be looking at things from an entirely different approach that might not have occurred to you, and it might make a lot of sense. And if you're both neurodiverse, well, then you're probably going to have a hell of a conversation, because you're going to think about things all kinds of different ways, and that's amazing. So if you're feeling like you don't know what you have to offer, if you want to switch into a different career path, or that you're just feeling that kind of stuck feeling and not sure how to move past it, find like your closest girlfriend and just, like I mentioned, you just get a glass of wine or have a beer or a coffee or, an edible, whatever your thing is. And just sit down and have a conversation, and you get to be yourself. And that's one of the easiest ways to figure out what it is that you're going to want to do, because you want to be fully yourself, because it makes it so much more enjoyable to have what you're doing feel very authentic. And so what better place to go to find that authenticity than to someone who knows you and loves you, and for your authentic self, and knows all of the awesome things that you probably don't see about yourself. So that is my tip for if you are feeling stuck. If you have any others, I'd love to hear them, and you can put them in the comments. And otherwise, I will be back soon with another insight or something related to starting your own business or building something that works for you. Thanks, and have a good night.